Thank you, Sharath. I'm David Ringstrom, a CPA in Atlanta, and welcome to Establishing Excel Dashboards. What my goal is over the next 2 hours is to demystify both the concept of a dashboard, which itself is a very broad term, but to kind of boil it down and give it a generic response. Within the confines of Microsoft Excel, dashboards are designed to be spreadsheets that allow us to aggregate massive amounts of data into a small space so that we can keep an eye on various information that's important to our organization, but then also easily get back into the details when necessary. So one of the problems we have, or challenges we have with the dashboard, is we have to be able to connect to our different data sources to even get the data into the spreadsheet, because information you're going to track with a dashboard is typically going to be very dynamic. And so what you won't want to do is have to spend a bunch of time manipulating data just so you can then analyze it. To the extent possible, we want to establish connections to our data sources and then use tools in Excel that update automatically so that we have as close to real time. It may not be real time, but minimal effort to be able to view information in our spreadsheet. So that's what we're going to look at today, is a variety of ways to take large amounts of data and then summarize them into compact form, but also be able to easily get back to the detail. We're also going to be looking at a tool that is called Microsoft Query that is often overlooked in Excel, but Microsoft Query is a means by which we can tap into a wide variety of data sources and set up connections to our spreadsheets where data gets pulled into our spreadsheet in the fashion that we need it, so we don't have to clean it up. We just open our spreadsheet, the latest data comes in, and then the other tools that we're connecting to that data update themselves as well. Now, with regard to the concept of dashboards, there is going to be a lot of nuance and a lot of new ground for you. So in addition to our Q&A session that we will have at the end, I do want to encourage you to go ahead and ask questions of me by way of the Q&A panel as we go through the material, because of the nature of the material, I'm always happy to go back over something again. So if you come across something where maybe I explained it to you quickly, or you want to try to apply it to your data, do feel free to chime in through the Q&A panel, and I should be able to field your questions as we go. But we'll also have a separate session at the end where we can open up the phone lines. You can ask questions in that fashion as well. So the presentation is definitely designed to be interactive, so I do welcome your questions as we go through the material today. Now, one of my challenges is I don't know what version of Excel you're using, so I'm going to kind of try to bridge the gap here. You're going to see that the PowerPoint slides that you are able to download mostly have screenshots from Excel 2010, and then for demonstrating the techniques, I'm going to use Excel 2013. And I'm taking this approach because I find that, at least among folks attending webinars, vast majority of folks are still using Excel 2010, or maybe I shouldn't say majority, it's kind of a large amount are using 2010, and then, but also I'm starting to see equal amounts using Excel 2013, not seeing as many folks on Excel 2016 yet. But fortunately, most of the techniques that we covered today will work the same across all versions of Excel. I think there may be one area that we get into that is not available in Excel 2007, but pretty much everything that we cover in this presentation, you should be able to do the same way across the different versions of Excel. Once we get into the concept of pivot tables, we'll see there's a vernacular change on one of the menus, but beyond that, the techniques themselves work the same across the different versions of Excel. Now, a question I get is, in case folks are using Excel 2007, they look at my screen and say, well, I don't have a file menu, what do I click on? So in that case, what you'll do is you'll click the little round button called the Office button if you happen to be using Excel 2007 still. I do cover a lot of ground in my presentations, and one of my primary ways for compensating for that is you'll see the handouts are very detailed. So all the steps I carry out are going to be numbered so that you can, after the presentation, go back through, follow the numbered steps, and recreate what I have done on the screen. Particularly for this course, some of the slides may initially feel like they have a lot of information on them. That is intentional so that I'm not having to flip from slide to slide, and so that you can see the whole process in one place. And so we follow the numbers around the slides, we'll be able to recreate the steps. There is an example workbook you're able to download that has most of the examples I'll be teaching from today, and also that includes a related articles tab. So I really do try to give you a lot of takeaways from attending one of my presentations. Those articles are ones that I've written in the past that relate to the concepts that we are covering today. So before we get into the actual concept of dashboards, I do want to talk about two features that could be useful in a dashboard, but definitely have a use for managing large amounts of data in a spreadsheet. And I like to include these because, one, I find that they often get overlooked in Excel, but also they can just kind of set the tone for what we want an ideal dashboard to be, where we'll be able to zoom in and zoom out on data very easily without much effort. And so the first tool that I wish to share with you is called Custom Views. This feature is available on Excel's View menu, and we can use custom views a lot of different ways, but what we're going to look at today is a spreadsheet that has a lot of information on it. Because many times, whether it's a dashboard or not, we can have spreadsheets that we keep adding columns and rows, and they grow, and all of a sudden we reach this tipping point where there's too much information to get our head around on one screen. So then we embark on setting off and creating new worksheets that kind of give us a summary view so that we don't have as much to look at. But when we have to spin off other worksheets that relate to that data, then we have a new problem where we're having to create that new sheet, having to make sure that it stays in step with the original sheet, and that can set us up for extra work and the specter of data integrity issues. And so instead of having to spin off multiple sheets, we could, in some cases, use the custom views feature to be able to hide and unhide columns and rows so that we can create different ways of looking at a single worksheet. So to use the custom views feature, what we're first going to do is create a base view that's going to have all the data that is available on the spreadsheet. So everything that's potentially available to be seen. Before we start hiding any rows and columns, what we will do is go to the View menu. That's step 2. Step 3, we will click on Custom Views. Now, there is a conflict with the Custom Views feature in that later today we're going to be talking about a feature that's called the Table feature in Excel. And unfortunately, in Windows, the Table feature, which has its own benefits, disables the Custom Views feature. So if you're looking at the example workbook and your Custom Views command is disabled, if you right-click on that worksheet that is labeled Custom Views Financial Statement, right-click on that tab and say Move or Copy, and just copy that worksheet out to a new workbook, you'll then be able to carry on with the techniques that we're going to do here. What's frustrating me about the custom views being disabled, one, the fact that it does get disabled, but two, if you're using Excel for Mac, then you don't have that problem. You can use custom views and tables together in the same spreadsheet. But in Windows, we can only use one or the other. So in looking at custom views, when we click the Custom Views button, Excel will then give us a Custom Views dialog box that will appear on the screen. And for most of your workbooks, it's going to be blank because most folks don't know to use this feature. So that's where step 4, we're going to click the Add button. And then step 5, we'll say that we want to assign a name. And so we'll give us a name like All Columns or All Data, whatever it is that we wish to call it. And then we'll click OK. So what this will do for us is give us an easy way to get back to expand all of the rows and columns. And so we'll be able to then go and hide columns and rows and so on and create additional views that we'll be able to toggle between on demand. So that means that we can see as much or as little of the information as we want, and it's just on a regular worksheet. We're not having to spin off a bunch of other sheets, not having to write any programming code. We're just able to make one worksheet serve multiple purposes. So we'll embark on that. We'll go to Excel, and so what I have is my initial worksheet, and so presently we see that there's even more data on the screen than I can even see without going from side to side. So what we're going to do is create our first view of the data. So we'll go to the View menu. We're going to click on Custom Views. When we do so, here's our Custom Views dialog box. It's currently blank. We're going to click Add, call this All Data, and then we'll click OK. Next, what we'll do is we will come in here and we'll create some additional views. So maybe I go in and step 7, I hide the quarter columns. And then I decide I want to create a view that's called months only. So once I've hidden the quarter columns so that they're not there, I will then go to the view menu again. That's step 8. Step 9, I'll go to custom views. Step 10, we see I'm going to click the add button that is down in the custom views dialog box. Step 11, I'll choose months only in this case. Step 12, I'll click OK. And then we're going to find that when I want to get to the all columns again, if I go back into custom views, I'll be able to double click all columns and redisplay that. So in this case, we're going to hide the quarter columns, and a way I can hide those is holding down the control key as I click on them. So we see I held down the control key, I clicked on each of the quarter columns. So by holding down the control key, I can select non-adjacent columns, I can then right click and then choose hide. So this gives me a view that shows me my months, but notice I can't quite see October, November, and December. So here's another benefit for custom views. I'm going to select across the rows right here. So I'm selected from column A over to column R. On that view menu, there's another command right in the middle. It's called zoom to selection. Now this one's not in your handout, but if we click zoom to selection, what that's going to do is it's going to shrink the worksheet down so that those columns just exactly fit on the spreadsheet. So at that point, then I can go to custom views. I can click add, call this months only. And then what we'll see, if I go to custom views, I double click all data, gives me my quarters back and expands the view. If I go to custom views and I choose months only, then it zooms back in. So we'll take this concept a little bit further. We'll go back and show all the data. This time we're going to hide the months. So we're going to have a quarter view. And so again, I'm holding down the control key as I make these selections so I can then hide those columns. And so we'll go to custom views. We'll click add. We'll call this quarters only. And then we're going to create one more view.